Somewhere right now, a radar operator is staring at a blip on a screen, and he has about 4 seconds to decide if it's an attacking bomber or a flock of geese. And somewhere right now, you are staring at a text message, a headline, or a look on your spouse's face, and you are about to make the exact same mistake, seeing what you already decided was there. Welcome to the Fulcrum Lab podcast, where we talk intelligence, strategy, leadership, and discernment. And today, we're going to talk about something sneakier than a bad decision. We're going after that moment that precedes a bad decision. The moment where your brain quietly picks a story and then goes shopping for evidence to support it. Fair warning, once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. You will spot it in your group chat by dinner time. Let's start with a technical concept, because it's more useful than it sounds. In the intelligence world, and in psychology generally, there's something called signal detection theory. The basic idea is simple. In any noisy environment, there's a real signal buried somewhere in a pile of irrelevant static. And the job of the detector, whether that's a radar system, a smoke alarm, or your own brain, is to draw a line and say, everything past this line I'm calling real. Everything before it I'm calling noise. Researchers who study this describe it as separating the accuracy of a detection system from its response bias, meaning how trigger-happy or how cautious it's set. Here's what makes it interesting. That line isn't fixed. You can move it. A smoke detector set too sensitively goes off every time you make toast. Set too loosely, and it stays quiet while your kitchen becomes a documentary. Humans do this exact same thing, except our sensitivity setting isn't about smoke. It's about whatever we already want to be true. If you want to believe your coworker is out to get you, your detector gets very sensitive, so that even innocent behavior gets flagged as sabotage. If you want to believe your business idea is going to work, your detector suddenly can't hear any signal that says this might not work, even when it's blaring at full volume. You didn't get new information because you moved the noise threshold line to filter out any contrary claims. Now, the reason this matters so much in professional intelligence analysis is that analysts don't often get to just look at raw reality and report back. Richard Hewer, who wrote the book Psychology of Intelligence Analysis, pointed out that analysts perceive evidence through mental models built from prior experience and assumptions. And once those models form, they are remarkably resistant to being updated, even when new evidence contradicts them. Hewer's specific warning was about something called confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out and treat information as confirming what you already believe, while quietly discounting or just not bothering to look for anything that would challenge it. His prescription for analysts wasn't try harder to be right. It was almost the opposite. He told analysts to spend their energy trying to disprove their favorite hypothesis instead of trying to prove it. Because the hypotheses that survive a real attempt at demolition are the only ones worth trusting. Think about how insane that sounds applied to your actual life. Instead of building the case for why you're right about your kid, your coworker, your calling, or your conspiracy theory about the office thermostat, you're supposed to spend your energy trying to prove yourself wrong. Nobody does this voluntarily. It's like asking a defense attorney to also prosecute their own client for fun. Which brings us to a story that is basically the Bible's version of a 400-person confirmation bias experiment, and it's glorious. 1 Kings 22, King Ahab wants to go to war against Ramoth Gilead, and before committing, he does something that looks responsible. He consults the prophets, all 400 of them, and all 400 of them say the same thing, in stereo, with theatrical props. One guy makes iron horns and says, "With these you'll gore the enemy." And the verdict is unanimous. Go to war. You'll win. God's with you on this one, champ. Jehoshaphat, the other king in the room, apparently has some functioning discernment, because he looks around at this unanimous chorus and says, "Is there not one more prophet we could ask?" And Ahab's answer is one of the most honest sentences in the entire Old Testament. He says, "There is one more, a man named Micaiah, but I hate him, for he never prophesies good concerning me, but always evil." Read that again. Ahab isn't saying Micaiah is wrong. He's not saying Micaiah's track record is bad. He's saying he hates him because Micaiah keeps telling him things he doesn't want to hear. That, right there, is the entire episode in one verse. Ahab doesn't have an information problem. He had 400 prophets on staff. He had a signal problem because he had already decided which signal counted as real, and it was the one that told him what he wanted to hear. And when Micaiah finally does show up and tells him the truth, that Israel is going to lose, the king is going to die, Ahab throws him in prison and goes to war anyway. He dies exactly as predicted, shot by, of all things, a random arrow fired by a soldier who probably wasn't even aiming for him. You can build the most impressive sounding consensus in the ancient world, and if it's built on telling the king what he already wants to believe, reality is going to collect its debt eventually. Now, before you feel superior to Ahab, let's talk about your phone. You and I don't have 400 court prophets standing around with iron horns. We have something much scarier, an algorithm that has studied our behavior more closely than any prophet ever could. And it has figured out exactly what content will make our particular itch feel scratched. Paul actually predicted this dynamic with startling precision in 2 Timothy, warning that a time would come when people would not put up with sound teaching, but instead, to suit their own desires, they would accumulate for themselves teachers to tell them what their itching ears wanted to hear, and turn away from truth towards myths instead. Commentators note that the phrase means to feel a craving to be tickled rather than corrected, people wanting a massage instead of a message. That is a remarkably accurate description of a For You page. You don't consciously assemble your 400 prophets, you just keep tapping the ones that feel good, and the platform quietly fires anyone who doesn't agree with you. Within a few months, you have a fully staffed prophetic bench that agrees with you about politics, about your ex, about whether you were right in that argument, about your business idea, about basically everything, and it feels like consensus. It's not consensus. It's an echo with a really good production value. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, though, because so far it's easy to point at Ahab and at the algorithm like the problem is out there. Proverbs puts the problem exactly where it belongs, which is inside the courtroom of your own head. Proverbs 18:17 says, "The first to plead his case seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him." One commenter describes it as a courtroom principle. A story told without challenge sounds complete and convincing, simply because the hearer only has one frame of reference and assumes that's the whole matter. And who is almost always the first person to plead a case inside your own head? You. You hear your own version of every conflict first. You hear it uncontested. And it sounds airtight because nobody's cross-examined it yet. You are your own most persuasive, least honest attorney. Proverbs 14:15 adds the punchline. The simple believes every word, but the prudent gives thought to his steps. One commentary calls the simple person here a simpleton, who believes everything he hears, or everything he reads in the newspaper. Swap in everything he reads in the comments section, and it still lands perfectly. The Hebrew word for simple there doesn't mean unintelligent. It means untested, unguarded, wide open. You can be brilliant and still be simple in this sense if you never subject your favorite conclusions to cross-examination. So let's build something useful out of all of this, because pointing out a problem for 15 minutes and then wishing you luck would be a very on-brand thing for an itching ears culture to do, and I refuse to do that to you. The first move is to notice when you're moving your own line. Whenever you catch yourself being easily convinced about something, ask what you wanted to be true before the evidence showed up. Wanting to believe something isn't proof you're wrong, but it suggests that your noise detector's been recalibrated. And you should probably treat the next piece of confirming evidence with a little more suspicion than usual, not less. The second move is Hewer's move. Go looking for your own Micaiah on purpose. Don't wait for the annoying, disagreeable voice to show up uninvited like it did for Ahab. Ask a specific person who you know will disagree with you to make the case against your plan, your read on the situation, your certainty that you heard from God on this one. And then This is the part everybody skips. Listen long enough to feel the discomfort instead of mentally drafting your rebuttal while they're still talking. The third move is to remember that unanimous agreement is not the same thing as truth, especially when you built the panel yourself. 400 prophets agreeing with the king proves the king is popular with the prophets he pays. It proves nothing about Ramoth Gilead. If everyone in your circle agrees with you, the first question isn't, am I right? The first question is, did I build this circle? And the last move, maybe the hardest one, get suspicious of the story that feels the most satisfying to tell. Again, not that this means it's necessarily false. Satisfying stories can absolutely be true. But the one where you notice yourself enjoying being right a little too much, where the villain is conveniently someone else and the hero is conveniently you, that specific flavor of satisfaction is often the tell that you've stopped analyzing and started decorating. This is the Fulcrum Lab Podcast. Somewhere between a radar screen and a 400-man pep rally for a king who is about to die, there's a very old, very human habit, mistaking the story we want for the signal that's there. The line between signal and noise isn't fixed, so the only real question is whether you're willing to move it back to where the truth is, even when the truth is standing there hated, alone, and inconvenient, saying the one thing you didn't want said aloud. I look forward to talking with you next week.